What's up, Big Bear Nation? Welcome back to the homestead. So today we're gonna dive deep into the kitchen garden. Now I know you probably don't recognize this because it looks a lot different than the last time we had it set up. So I kind of wanted to walk you around, show you what we've done, tell you about what was successful, what the heat got a hold of last week, and what we're planning on doing in the future with this space. So in this space right here behind me, you can see this bed is empty. And that's because we grew a pretty successful crop of potatoes. But then we had this huge monsoon come and we had to pull all the potatoes out before they started to rot. So I never got around to replanting that, but that's good because now it's open and ready for me to replant to try and hurry up and get something in before the fall. Right behind me, you can kind of see that space right there. We have a huge trellis that, funny enough, Jason didn't see my vision when I started explaining it to him, but I convinced him to get all of the cattle panels that we had just lying around and to stake them into the ground for me so that I could plant beans. So I planted a ton of rattlesnake beans. I think there must be almost 100 plants here, and they did really well. We got a lot of green beans, we got a lot of dried beans. But between the heavy rains and then the sweltering heat that we had last week, we've had a lot of plants die off. So what I've done is I started some seedlings inside the house, and I have those that I can go ahead and rip out the dead plants and replant another round before the frost. Now in this bed right here, I had started some peppers and they didn't do all that well, which was really crazy because it was a cayenne pepper, and last year I had a bumper crop of cayenne. But I also had started some purple basil, and as you can see now, a bunch of that has gone to seed this past week because I wasn't out here pinching the flowers off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that here in a minute. But I also had, and you can't really, I guess you can kind of see this, I did have dragon egg cucumbers in here, and the heat just destroyed them. So what I wanted to do today is I'm going to get out here and kind of clean all this out, and then I'm going to replant it because cucumbers don't take but like 50 days. And so I should be able, if I go ahead and plant now, I should be able to harvest more cucumbers before the first frost of the year. That's the nice thing about Georgia. We still have, it's just the beginning of August, we still have plenty of time to be able to do some things. Now obviously we're not going to be able to catch up on tomatoes and eggplants and hot peppers, but according to my planner, I still have time to go ahead and put some bell pepper seeds in the ground. So I might even try that just to see what happens. Now, the reality of homesteading is that it might be functional, but it's not always pretty. And this year we tried to do more functional than we worried about pretty. We only have a couple of actual like Vego Garden raised beds, and they're nice, but we still wanted to grow food. So we have a lot of these like round planters and things like that. This is crazy. I had one little tomato plant and I put it in with the intention of it just kind of like filling out and kind of trellising down, and it really hasn't disappointed me. I mean, the plant's here, but like it's come all the way down to the ground here and it's all the way over there. So it's taken up a good portion of this area. But then behind me, because of the rain, all of the weeds are starting to just try to take over. So we have to get in here and kind of clean this all up before we start planting for the fall. So I also have some, so like this Tabasco plant did really well. I'm gonna harvest some of those peppers here pretty soon. This is hyssop. It kind of ebbs and flows. When it was nice and wet, it was nice and green, and now that the sun, I mean, it hasn't completely killed it from the heat, but as you can see, I've already got some seeds here that I probably need to harvest. That was a squash, but obviously it died. So even with watering, this was a stevia plant, which still, the flavor is still really good. I may try to stake it up and see what I can do. This was an eggplant that still hasn't thrown any flowers, but it looks like I have some damage here, so I might have had some pests. Another stevia plant. Looks like it needs to just be loved on. Now, right here, you can see I have these, yes, those are cast iron tubs. They started out really good. Man, look at those tomatoes over there. But the water situation with these, so we had them leaning because you can see right here, there's a hole from where the drain, you know, or where the water usually would come in. And so right down the bottom down there, there would be a drain hole. And so we had tried to plant these so that it, you know, flows this way. But this one specifically got so flooded that we had to put some stone. I don't know if you can see that, but we had to put some stone to be able to get it. And so we didn't grow anything in here the rest of the season. We've just let it go with weeds. So that's another one that's got to get cleaned out. I did have some squash on here, or zucchini, that was doing pretty good, but yeah, so one thing about the heat, last week we were over 100 degrees all week long. Like, when I tell you one day it was like 109 with the heat index, like last Sunday I think it was awful. So we haven't been outside to really do much of anything. And this is the kind of stuff that happens. I had this banana pepper that was doing pretty well, and it is still doing pretty well. But you can see I have a lot of red ones on here that I have to pick. And then I'm also gonna need to stake this up so it can continue to grow, because it's doing pretty well. And I think the difference I'm noticing on some of these beds that did really well and some that did not is that it looks like we had mulched some of these beds and some of them we didn't. So before we have another heat wave, when I get in here and clean everything up, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that everything that we replant gets mulched before we have another round of 100-degree-plus weather. Now, I know a bunch of y'all are probably thinking, just throw in the towel, be done with it. I mean, I'm overrun. Even, you know, we had the big garden. The big garden's full of weeds. This one was nicely covered in wood chips, but again, with the rain, all the weeds are starting to come up through it. We didn't put it on as heavy as I'd like to, because when we had those monsoons of rain, the water would come down the driveway and it just would cut past. And you can tell where it's the worst is because the rain came right through here and it just ripped it all up. One thing I do want to talk about, that big clump of weeds right there, we actually harvested a very large harvest of garlic, and so we've kind of let that space go. But right to the next to it, I'm gonna take you over to that trough in just a second. We planted some horseradish, and the leaves are monstrous. They're like 2.5 feet. They're huge. And so I'm excited to be able to harvest those, but we're letting those stay into the ground until we need them. But overall, I know it doesn't look like it right now, but we were harvesting quite a bit of food from this space. And so now, like I said, I haven't given up on it yet. I'm gonna come out here, clean everything up, replant what I can, and cross my fingers and hope that the long Georgia growing season will be good to us. Now here's the horseradish, and these leaves, I mean, let me show you, like in comparison to my hand, like that's my full hand, and that leaf is, I mean, it's massive. 3 roots here, so they seem to be doing okay. Over here, I have a green pepper plant that's doing pretty well. It's throwing off consistently throwing off some decent sized green peppers. I have this squash plant that is throwing off lots of leaves, but I haven't seen any flowers. Yeah, I haven't seen any flowers, but tons and tons of squash bugs. Look at that. You can see all of the, where they've laid the eggs. Man, there's all different stages here. Look at these guys. Look at that. Can you see them? Now, another thing we've been really fortunate to harvest this year is we have quite a bit of lemongrass. There's lemongrass right here. There's actually a lemongrass trying to poke out through here. I got to cut. Now we also had a one of these little cherry tomato plants, and it's doing okay. Obviously, because it's leaning on the ground, it's starting to get attacked by the bugs. So I'll have to get in there and secure it back up to the bamboo. I also have this. Now, I thought all that I planted this year was little finger eggplant, but this is most definitely not a little finger. So we'll definitely have some eggplant. Now see, this is just the type of year where all of the vine borers are getting a hold of everything and killing everything. So I'm gonna get in here, clean that one out, and go ahead and replant. So here's my successful pepper of the year this year. Last year it was cayennes and Tabascos. This year it is serranos. Look at all of the serrano peppers that are just all over this plant. And there's still more. Look at that little bitty guy right there. And then I have this tomato plant that was doing well, but it looks like I'm starting to get some pests here too, trying to eat. So we gotta tie that guy up and see if we can bring him back to life. Now, some of y'all who've been with us for a while know that we've taken this space before and grown a lot of food in it. But as of last year, we didn't have anything growing in the front yard. And this year we had cleared this whole area out. There's no more beds over here. And once Jason could see just how successful that one side was, we were able to remember, you know, when we started the grow food, not lawns situation, the whole project we had, it's easy to forget how powerful and productive a small space can be. And so we got to talking, and we've decided that we're going to take this whole area, you know, all of this, and we're going to turn it into more food. And primarily we're going to try and focus on like a tea garden, a lot more of our herbs, maybe some edible flowers like nasturtium, calendula, that kind of stuff, so that we can not only produce out in the big garden for those big lofty dreams of being able to feed others that are in need, but also to be able to have the convenience to just walk right out the front door, harvest what we want for the spring and the summer and even the fall, and not have to go into our stored canned goods, because we want to try and keep those for the winter. So one last thing I wanted to show you before we go, and that is I won the battle this year. We were putting some stuff out, and we had a bunch of older seed, and I said to Jason, I said, I have all these loofah seeds, and I'm not sure if any of them are going to turn into anything. So he said, go ahead, plant them, see what happens. Well, all 10 seeds that I planted turned into plants. So then the question became, where are we going to put them? Because that trellis right there was completely reserved for beans. And so I wasn't allowed to plant them there. So the suggestion then became, let's grow them on the side of the woodshed. So there's the woodshed, and we went ahead and planted down there at the bottom, put in a little bit of wood chips, and they've gone up over the top, and I'll show you in a second where they've actually gone into the woodshed. So they've climbed all the way in through here, up, around, and it's actually trying to come back through. But if you can see, like, there's a couple trailing down through there. But surprisingly, with all of these flowers and everything, and there's quite a few flowers on here, I only see, as of right now, there's one little guy trying to form right here. There he is. That's a baby trying. But it looks like, where did I see you? So there's one guy right back here trying to grow. But then there's this guy. This is my surprising one. He's pretty long. It's hard to see. Let's see if I can get him back to where you can see him. Yeah. See, he's pretty big. And then I've got one other guy right here trying to grow as well. He's grown pretty big. So as you can see, I've got a nice healthy set of plants, but not very many loofah growing. Now, one person might say that one or two of these really big loofahs is enough sponges basically for the year and more than enough seed, but I always like to have more. You know, now that I'm looking, there's another guy right here trying to grow. So maybe I'm just not looking hard enough, but I am a little disappointed. Yeah, there's another one. I guess I just have to look a little bit harder, but I was just expecting tons and tons of loofahs because I thought it would be funny to, you know, throw that in Jason's face because he's not a fan of the loofah gourds when they're growing. And he's definitely not a fan when there's seed flying all over the place and then the next year you have random loofahs growing everywhere. And I also forgot to tell you, I mean, what would my garden be without a couple of sunflowers that just accidentally fell into the beds at strategic 18 to 24 inch spacing. So those of y'all that know me or been following around know that I'm super excited to have this kitchen garden back. We took a couple years off breaking down all the old wooden beds. They were really pretty, but they were starting to fall apart. So that's why I don't know if, you know, if I kind of showed you enough, but pretty much all of the containers that we have over here are either plastic or metal. And that's intentional because we want to be able to grow food without having to worry about things deteriorating. Now, obviously the plan over time is going to be to replace all of those plastic barrels, the tubs, things like that with the raised metal beds. And as we replace those, we may bring them over to this side to be able to grow in until we can replace them with more raised metal beds. That's obviously the goal at the end of the day. So I'm really excited to be able to show you this and also invite you to follow us along as we get rid of all of the old stuff that got killed by the heat and replace it with new stuff, whether it be beans, squash, cucumbers, maybe even a few bell peppers. Try to get those things going, but then also be intentional to keep some space open because we're going to start our fall garden as well. So I'm going to probably plant a few cabbages here. We may grow a couple of broccoli, cauliflower, some Brussels sprouts, that kind of thing over here as well. So stay tuned to see what will be growing for the fall. If you have something that you've started, and whether you're in our zone or you're in a different zone, I'd love to hear what things that you have started for your fall garden, what things didn't fare well this year with the heat, with the rain. I'd love to hear all of that feedback down in the comments below. Thank you for stopping by the Big Bear Homestead. God bless. Have a nice day.